Alright, this is my part 2 to the single slit experiment video. We're going to talk about why the dual slit experiment is a bad experiment, just like the Michelson-Morley experiment that disproved the ether. Sorry, it didn't disprove it, nor did it prove it. It was a null experiment. So here I have my single slit, or sorry, just a single nail. Alright. And you can see get in there good. Alright, as you can see, we get the interference pattern that you get with the dual slit. Alright, I'm going to turn it around. Alright, and I'm going to show you the single slit. And as you can see, the needle, or excuse me, the laser, only shines on the needle and in the gap, not going around the needle at all. And you can see, again, the interference pattern. Now the width, sorry, got in the way. The width of the interference pattern just comes from the width of the slit. Alright, so the point of this video is just to show that we don't understand, or most people don't understand, where these singles, or where the interference pattern comes from, excuse me. Alright, and what we're seeing is, yes, it's, constructive and destructive interference, but from what? Because you can sit there and you can get a lot of different explanations from YouTube or from Google or from the books on what you see. Some of them will tell you when you get the single slit, you don't get a wave pattern. Very few will tell you that you do. Others tell you about electrons and how weird it is, but when you look at Tesla and Steinmetz and others that used electricity to give us the modern world we have, they completely denied the electron. It didn't exist. I'll make videos on that showing you why the electron's a fallacy. Okay, and that's something you can do at home for relatively cheap, just using magnets and a tube TV. But anyways, back to the interference pattern. All you're seeing with the interference pattern, I don't have it tuned well, but you can sort of see it. All you're seeing is, you're seeing the exact same thing as when you drop a rock in the water. It's the exact same interference pattern. You're just seeing a cross-sectional view of it. So they sit here and tell you that light doesn't have a medium, that the ether doesn't exist. Even though they have to use euphemisms for the ether for certain things in quantum mechanics. But they sit here and tell you it doesn't exist. But when you do their experiment that, says light is a wave and a particle, that very few will tell you is outdated and just not a good experiment. They'll sit here and show you this and say it proves quantum mechanics and stuff, and but they won't tell you that, or they'll tell you that light doesn't have a medium, when I think, if anything, the dual slit experiment shows you that the ether does indeed exist. But you also have to understand what the ether is to run a proper experiment on it, and Michelson and Morley did not understand the ether enough to be running an experiment on it. And not to mention, they said they were going to do further testing, and they never did. So but with the interference pattern, what you're seeing is constructive and destructive interference between the magnetic and the dielectric. So, and it's important to remember, a lot of people are going to be like, what the hell is dielectric? And I'm not talking about like for capacitors or anything. Dielectricity, the ether under stress or strain. And Faraday said magnetism is the dielectric field, so in order for light to even exist, there has to be a dielectric component to it because it's magnetic. So and magnetism and dielectricity hate each other. You can see that on the tube TV. That's, you know, magnetism versus diamagnetism, or ferromagnetism versus diamagnetism, you know. So you can see the destructive and constructive interference between the magnetic and dielectric, which is all the interference pattern is, you know, and it's showing you the cross section of that. So, you know, just really do your own experiments, you know, because a lot of people, they just have their own agenda towards things these days. And honestly, electricity is pretty powerful. If we all knew what it could do, a lot of people that aren't broke right now would be extremely broke. You know, it would flip the script on people. So that's why we don't learn the truth about things anymore. Because if you did, my God, those in power would not have the power. But that's a whole different scope beyond this video. But yeah, just do your own stuff. Don't just accept what people tell you, because at the end of the day, they might be crazy as hell, and they're trying to pass on a explanation to you that is crazier than them. And not everything works to describe things, and some things they do work to describe things, but that is ultimately not the answer. And you can't understand light without understanding the ether. So, and that is something really nobody understands, because there's been 1,000 different theories over the years, and well, the ether's been taboo and people haven't heard of it since Michelson Morley. So just remember to keep doing your own experiments, and try to come to correct conclusions.